My absolute favorite time of the year is right now, or we're on the cusp of it, I should say, so that's moose hunting. So we hunt because we eat meat. We're not trophy hunters, so moose, deer, small game, fish. And today I'm making a new birch bark moose call. The reason I love the sound of these, that because it's a natural material, it resonates better in terms of the vocalization sounds that a moose makes, so it sounds real. If you actually hear them in the wild and then you hear someone who knows how to talk moose through one of these, it sounds pretty darn close. So you don't need a whole lot. A twig that's bendable, so this is a piece of black willow, a small chunk of birch bark. You can go to the forest and get spruce root, split it in half, similar as I would use in building a canoe, or you can use a bit of leather, which I've got some spare. I'm going to use that today. So this will be a brief tutorial. You should be able to build one of these. They're pretty simple when I'm finished. This is an old piece of bark. It's really thick. It's from a previous build, so it's stiffened right up. So if you were to take that right off the tree, you could form it into the size of cone that you want, but because it's overwintered, it's a bit stiff. I'm going to add some boiling water to it, and it's even starting to unlaminate a bit, some of the layers, which isn't going to matter. It's still going to make a pretty good solid call, and I'll show you how I'm going to go about it. So you can use this this willow, or you can use red osier. That kind of adds some color to it. Red willow, some people call it. It'll strengthen the throat of it, the larger part of the cone. You don't have to, but even if I choose not to use this, I want the end of my moose call to be about that big. So I'm just going to mark that area there, and I'm going to use it as a guide as to how big to cut my bark. So we're going to put a mark here and a mark here. Then I'm going to try to find roughly the middle, which I'm going to say is right about there. I'm going to run that down. So there's my bottom. Center of the bottom is there. And I'm going to want the bottom to be about 2 inches or so, maybe a little bigger in diameter. So I want the bottom to be about like that. So we're going to go from there to there, and using that for the middle. There's one end of it. There's the other end of it. And now a rough line. This does not have to be, this isn't a watch. We're building something like that for the one line, and something like that for the second line. So the secret is to cut it on a 45-degree angle. And because I'm going to go down there like that, I'm going to This is about the thickest bark I've ever worked with for canoe building. It actually built quite a tank of a canoe. This is going to build a slightly smaller one in terms of length than I normally do, or it's going to be a little easier to carry about the woodlots and in the forest when we're hunting. When you talk about hunting, we think about numbers of animals. If we have an area 100 square kilometers in the part of the world that I'm going to be hunting moose in, and we've got a population of 20 animals in that 100 square kilometers, that's considered a healthy moose population. So for my American friends, that's a 60 square mile area of wilderness. So you have to be in earshot of them. So in the hunting process, first of all, you got to find sign. You got to find fresh sign. Once you've found that sign, it's like turkeys. If the rut's on, one is able to call those moose right into you. So over the years, I've talked a lot of moose. Haven't shot that many, but I've talked a lot of moose within shooting range, and often we wouldn't have the tag, so we might call cows in when we got a bull tag or bulls in when we got a cow tag. But bottom line is, it's a great way to increase your success if you can call. Anyway, see what I can do with this. Okay, first piece of bark didn't work so well. It is pretty old, it's pretty stiff, so I'm going to do like I would, process that I would use if I was building a canoe, is I wet the material with hot water, or boiling water, and that'll make it pliable, more like a piece of cloth, and then I'll cut out my shape. We'll see if that works a little better on the second try. You can actually watch it change shape right before your eyes. I don't know, this is some pretty awful old bark. I don't know if this is going to work. I may have to go skin a tree. It's not the best, but I might be able to make this one work. See the natural oils in birch bark. We'll get a fire going in a hurry. It is an absolutely amazing material. And the natives discovered that thousands of years ago, how resourceful this material could actually be. Actually, What I meant to say was it's an amazing material, and the natives or indigenous peoples were very resourceful in their use of it, or figuring out how they could use it in so many ways. Okay, essentially at this point I've got a moose call, and I could use it like that. It's going to work, but I want to make it more permanent. You could do what I've done here. I could put a bunch more lashings and just lash it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to puncture holes, and I'm going to actually stitch it up so it'll be a little more permanent. And just like building birch bark canoes, if you drill holes in birch bark, you actually remove material. But if you use a three-sided awl, same awl that I use for my birch bark canoe buildings, basically you're pushing apart that fiber, and then after you've wet it and you've put in your lacing and everything dries up, it tends to tighten up on itself, so it's sort of like a self-healing wound. All right, I'm going to punch a series of holes. This isn't going to be pretty. I have done them where I start down here and I put holes on either side, and then do a neck stitch. However, my big old fat hand, I can't get down in there, so I have to get Kathy to help me with that part. So I'm just going to do a whip stitch up the center of it here. There would be different ways of starting this, but all I'm going to do is I'm going to put that in. I'm going to put a knot on the inside of this. I'll use a figure of an 8. It makes a slightly bigger knot. And that will be the start of my whip stitch. So now I can undo this knot and I can cinch up my first stitch. On to stitch number 2. done. Kind of a fun project. Would have been a lot of fun if my hand was a little smaller. So I'm not going to sew that. This is really heavy bark, and I'm not going to sew that branch around the front. If you're working with thinner bark, it's a good idea to do that. I've even gone, sometimes I'll take brain tan leather, and so it feels good on the mouth and get a better seal. I'll sew some braid tan leather around there, but I think I'm going to get a good sound out of it. So I'm going to go over here by the pond and demonstrate this. And if you've never heard a moose in the wild, you're going to be looking at this and you're going, that guy's pulling my leg, because there's no way an animal sounds like that. But this is a pretty good representation. I'll do a cow in heat for you. Just one other point before I make a fool of myself. You notice how long they are. Sometimes I build them actually a little longer. So there's one distinctive, well, there's a few distinctive features about a moose, but one of them for sure, for certain, is the length of its nose. So by having a call that's long like that, you are going to more closely replicate that vocalism that they do. Moose are very communicative animals. They like, I have great luck calling turkeys in. I have had great luck calling moose in. Not so much with deer. I've stopped deer going away with a buck grunt, but I've never actually called a deer in using the buck grunting sound. But I've called many moose within 15 yards, like bow range, using this technology. So, and like I say, I'm not pulling your leg. Here we have a cow in heat, and if the rut is on and a bull is within hearing range, they can hear this a mile and a half, depending on the topography. Across a big lake, they'll hear this a long way off. So, cow in heat. That's a cow in heat during the rut. That's going to bring a bull in. But now let's say you've and sometimes the cows, it'll bring cows in as well. So in the fall, the calf has stayed with the cow all summer, but the cow will push that calf off during the breeding period. Calf will eventually find a cow again, and life goes on. She'll be impregnated. But so let's say you've brought in some cows. You only have a bull tag. If you've brought in those cows, there's a good chance there's going to be a bull right behind them. Like, just don't move around, don't make a lot of noise, sit down, be quiet. Now let's say you bring a bull in and he hangs up and he's in thick brush. You know where he is, but you're not going to get a humane shot. If you start to grunt, what you're replicating then is, instead of the cow, you're representing a bull who that is a threat, a direct threat to that bull who's hiding in the bushes over there. And he's going, well, by golly, there's another bull there. He doesn't want any part of that. So he's going to come in to try to drive that bull off. It's a dominance thing for the whole breeding cycle. So there's basically two types of grunts. One is a and one's a or rah. So I have trouble doing it unless I'm actually got it up in my mouth. But I'm going to say I've got a bull hung up. He's 150 yards out. He's in dense brush. And I'm going to use the call that he's using. So whatever sound he's making, I'm going to try to replicate. And with any luck, that's going to bring him in. Oh.